Good day everyone, my name is Muhammad Faizi. My student ID is 0009050309850001 and I am from OUMH1303 English for Oral Communication. Today I'll be presenting a report titled Why Siamese Cats Change Color as They Grow Older. Now, before I want you to begin, I want you to imagine something. Imagine a small kitten, just born, its fur is completely white, no dark spot at all. Nothing on its ear, its paw, or its tail. But then, after a few weeks later, something interesting happened. Its ears start to darken, slowly with its paw, its face, and its tail. So, at this point, you might be wondering, what is actually happening here? Is it just normal part of growing up, or is there something more scientific behind this? Well, today I'm gonna explain to you how the process works, and more importantly, how a Siamese cat are influenced not just by heat but also temperature. Before we go into the scientific explanation, let's clear one misunderstanding. Some people believe that the darker fur helps the cat absorb heat, similar to how wearing a black cloth under the sun makes you feel hotter. Now, at first, it does sound logical, but in reality, it's not correct. The dark color is not there to absorb the heat, and it is not helping the cat regulate body temperature in that way. Instead, the color appear because the cat's body react to temperature. So, this pattern is not something the cat uses to survive, it's actually a biological effect that happened naturally. Now, let's get into the real explanation behind this. The color of cat's fur is controlled by something called melanin, which is a pigment. Melanin is what gives color, and not only to the fur, but also to human skin and hair. This pigment is produced by an enzyme called tyrosinase. In most animals, this enzyme works normally throughout the entire body, which is why their fur color appear consistent. However, Siamese cats are different. They have a genetic mutation that makes this enzyme temperature sensitive. That means the enzyme behaves differently depending on the temperature. So, when the temperature is warm, the enzyme does not function properly. When the temperature is cooler, the enzyme becomes active. When it becomes active, melanin is produced, and that's when the fur becomes darker. When it is inactive, no melanin is produced, so the fur remains light. Now, let's relate this to the cat's body. If we look at the body of a Siamese cat, the center of the body, such as the chest or the stomach, is usually warmer. This is because it is closer to the internal organ. As a result, the fur in those areas stay light. However, areas like the ears, the paw, the face, or the tail are naturally cooler because this part are exposed and further away from the body. So, in these cooler area, the enzyme became active. And when that's happened, melanin is produced, causing the fur to turn darker. In a simple way, a Siamese cat can be seen as kind of a heat map. Its fur actually reflects temperature differences across its body. Now, this also explains something very interesting about the Siamese cat. When they are born, they are completely white. So, why does this happen? This is why the kitten at birth appeared to be white. This is when the melanin began to form and slowly the darker color appeared. So, the color change does not happen instantly, it developed gradually over time. Another interesting factor in this environment, the surrounding of the cat also affect its color. For example, if a Siamese cat lives in a colder temperature, more part of its body will be cool enough for the enzyme to react. As a result, the cat will appear to be darker overall. On the other hand, if the cat is in a warmer environment, fewer area will activate the enzyme, so the cat will appear lighter overall. Even with small changes in temperature or weather can slightly influence the color of the cat. In conclusion, what makes these topics interesting is not just the color change itself, but what it represents on a deeper level. We might only notice the contrast in its fur, the lights of its body, and the darker point. But after understanding the process behind it, we begin to realize that this is not just about appearance. It is about how living systems respond to their surrounding. The idea is important because it shows the change in its nature is often and not random, but influenced by the condition that we may not immediately notice. Something as simple as temperature, which we usually take for granted, can actually shape how certain traits appear over time. This reminds us that in biology, there is often a connection between internal process and external condition. And more importantly, it shows us that the environment is not just something we live in, it is actively interact with us. Another interesting perspective is how gradual this changes. The color does not change instantly, it develops slowly over time, almost without us noticing from day to day. Because of this, we may not always realize that something is changing until we take a step back and observe the bigger picture. In that sense, this example also teaches us the importance of observation. In addition, this topic highlights how knowledge can change the way we see familiar things, because understanding the signs, we might just see how Siamese cats are something visually unique. But after learning the explanation behind it, we begin to appreciate it differently. We no longer just see the color, we see a pattern, we see an interaction, and we see how a system at large works. And this shift in perspective is what I believe makes learning valuable. It allows us to move from simply observing the world to actually understanding it. So, rather than just remembering fact, what is more important is developing the ability to question, to analyze, and to connect ideas. Because in the end, science is not only about answers, it's about curiosity. It is about understanding how small detail can reveal bigger concept, and it's about recognizing that the most ordinary things around us can hold meaningful explanation. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.